Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast, where we look to empower and encourage real conversations amongst men everywhere by unpacking topics on self-help, philosophy and business. G'day everybody, Conrad here. Oh, was I supposed to say Conrad here?
Conrad here?
That's right,
Hey, Conrad here?
No, keep that.
Hey.
Welcome to the Simple Minds podcast. The guys are a bit rowdy today. We have a full room of punters, which includes Matt Hannum, Jacob Moffat, Justin Bourne, Travis Haydo, and Michael Duncan. Gentlemen, welcome.
Welcome.
Glad
to be here. What's up?
We're drinking, I don't even know how good this wine is. To tell you the truth, I've just subscribed to a new wine delivery service called Naked Wines, and the first batch was like $60. So there are a lot of cheap wines in here. This one,
That's where you're
I was going to say,
that.
for you, isn't that expensive?
Did you get 10 bottles in the first delivery?
it's kind of funny.
I'm glad
but,
you bring your cheap wine for us, Conrad.
Well,
That's how you think of us.
we can test it together.
Well, let's pour it and let's test
It's called El Toro Castrado. I bought this because it's actually kind of funny, right? It's got a dancing bull on there that's lost its nuts.
Spanish for the
castrated
castrated
as
bull.
in
Yeah.
Ooh.
So the bull's been castrated. And I thought, I'm sitting amongst men who have all been castrated. So I thought, why not drink with you? So that's what we're drinking. The topic we're discussing today is was introduced to me a few years ago, and that's writing a letter to a younger version of yourself. And the reason why I'm visiting it today is because I think it was last month or February, whatever it was, I went over to Melbourne and I listened to, I was lucky enough to listen to Kobe Bryant speak. Now Kobe is, I'm probably one of his biggest fangirls. And it was kind of interesting because one of the biggest topics they brought up with him was his letter to his younger self, which he wrote back in 2016. And the point he brought up was fairly personal because it's a kind of, it's broken his family up. He hasn't spoken to his mum and dad for a fair few years because of it. But it was around about not just giving family members stuff, but investing in family members. So teaching the true value of who they are as opposed to understanding the value that he has. And when I sat there and I've played around with this, I haven't written a letter to my former self. I've played with the topic as to how I would write it plenty of times. But no, I haven't completed one. But I'm open to, and I'll come back to me last if that's okay, but I'm open to hearing if there's any advice that you could give to your younger selves. It'd be interesting to see what that would be. There's a variety of ages and experiences in this room. And most of the ones I've read, which is on, I think it's Players Tribune, I think is the website, and I don't mind reading them. There's a whole heap of them there. There's two that I reflect on quite a lot, and that's the one written by Ray Allen and the other one written by Greg Norman. And the two quotes out of this, if I could just read them, you've been blessed with a certain stubbornness that's stronger than any doubt from others and even yourself. Things might seem bleak when you have no sponsors and you're gambling with guys at the club in order to have enough money to get to tournaments. When you're getting by on $32 a week, you're going to need to find that internal drive and trust in yourself to keep going. You and you alone determine your limits. That's by Greg Norman. Did anyone know that guy got to $32 in a week? That's what he's living off?
Wow, no.
Crazy, right? But that's his advice to his 17-year-old version of himself. And this one from Ray Allen. Don't ever put yourself in a position to wish you could hop in a time machine, Ray. You need to stay focused because things will only become more complicated as you have more success on the court. Again, I think that was him to a 16-year-old version of himself. Now, again, we can probably put in the blog who Ray Allen and Greg Norman are, but to the table here, I think we all know who these guys are, and we know what they've achieved in their sporting careers. So, just the context around the table, just go around the table, and I'd be keen to see where you are right now to, let's say, if you went back to 16, 17 years of age, what's the singular piece of advice you would give yourself to help make the next part of your journey easier? Justin?
Clockwise.
Justin, how old are you at the moment?
Justin's Googling it.
29.
29. So we're going back a few years.
I actually I think you sent me these letters a while ago now, and rereading them in preparation for this podcast was awesome. I really enjoy these ones. Particularly the Ray Allen one, for me, is really connects with me a lot. And I think it's interesting because then I started to... I was flying back on a plane last night, and so I had a bit of space, and I started to think about what I would say. And I guess there's an element of like cliche-ness of, would you really want to go back and change anything? Because a lot of it obviously feeds to who you are today. So, and I don't think the letters are necessarily regret letters of like, you should change this or change that. Yeah, it is more of that keep in mind. And
they're like tips and hacks, right?
Yeah. And it's hard to say one thing.
But I'm asking you for one thing.
For one thing,
Just decide.
There's plenty.
Cheers.
Oh, we're having a quick cheers.
Just filling in time.
Yeah, I appreciate.
Not
I
much else we can
appreciate
do
it.
on it for you, buddy.
I really thank you. I really appreciate that. To buy me a bit of moment. The one that popped out was that like nothing is like actually that hard. You know, in the moment or leading up to it, like it always feels like there's always a lot of pressure and you're in the dumps, and then you always come out the other side kind of like, oh, that wasn't that bad, and you become more experienced. The other one, like that's a little bit cliche and is common in a lot of the letters. The other one is trying to build up the resilience. A piece of advice I'd give to my younger self is watch comfort. Like watch out for being too comfortable. Because that seems to get me undone still to this day. Like, you know, being...
So you want to build that muscle earlier.
Yeah, like the attractiveness of being comfortable, and fighting that desire, you know, yeah. And I think that's the main one, is being more uncomfortable earlier, and having like just go into it, which is I guess the same as that. It's not as tough as what it looks like. So as what it seems like.
And the question, I mean, so a lot of these guys obviously have achieved a lot, and guys and girls have achieved a lot in their careers. At 16, 17, would you have seen where you're at right now at 29? Was that fathomable? If I said that word properly.
There's a part of yes, but then there's an element of, I think that's where that comfort piece is, always that battle between, I think if I was put myself in more uncomfortable situations.
You saw yourself running a business.
No, I didn't see myself running a business, but I did see myself, when I first started, I think I've shared it, like, I always had the mentality, like when I started as a trainee, I was like, I walked past the CEO's office and I'm like, I'm going to sit in that desk.
Yeah.
So from a very young age, I've always been ambitious, I guess. So I guess running a company in some aspects, we've talked about this, be careful what you wish for. It doesn't look like what I thought it would look like, but I have gotten what I wished for and what I set out to. Earlier, a few weeks ago, we talked about comparisons. If I was to compare, I'm not where I would like to have been at this age, but I'm also not happy with that either, because I think a lot of the situations that have occurred needed to happen. So and I think the only piece of advice is like just watch out. I guess it's a little bit of the stoicism.
Watch out for being comfortable.
Yeah, watch out for being comfortable and the luxuries.
Yeah, they're all traps.
Yeah, you know, if you look at these letters and you look at these people who have succeeded, it's all about sacrifice, and I guess it's trying to find the right balance of sacrifice. And has the sacrifice been worth it? You know, people talk about productivity as in like getting an ROI. Is your ROI on the sacrifice really been kind of worth? It's finding that balance, because yeah, like whether you want to go out with friends or you want to sit at home and watch that movie, or you don't want to go to the gym or you want to sleep in. It's all those luxuries and fighting them.
Or shut everyone out and just go and read.
Yeah. So anyway, that's me.
Trav.
What one thing would you tell a younger version of yourself?
How old are you, Trav?
I'm 29. So
Same age as Justin.
we are one day apart.
We are.
It is that there is only one person on this earth that can believe in you 100% of the time, and that's yourself. That you need to invest in yourself and invest in the belief that you can do anything. That's probably the one thing that I would probably tell my younger self. If I reflected and looked at my 16, 17-year-old self and looked, where would I be in 12 years' time, I would say that I've underachieved because I wanted to go to the Olympics. That was my goal at 16.
As a pole vaulter?
Yes, as a pole vaulter. But am I 100% happy with where I am? Hell yeah. I love what I do.
So was that a lack of belief that took away the Olympic stuff, or what happened there?
Yes and no. It was a compounding.
Because you were a national champion.
Yeah, 5 times. Anyway,
what's your advice?
Compounding situations that allowed me to make a decision that impacts you long term. That's what it was. Do I regret it? No, not anymore. I did for the first few years, but it's not. I'm probably looking at it as a wider scope of everything to do with work, to do with, say, basketball, to do with life, to do with relationships, to do with comparing yourself to one another, to do with spirituality. The last couple of episodes, if you're not going to believe in yourself, then no one else will. So it has to start with you, and then also the invest in yourself piece. To further yourself and to be a better person that you can be, and to be a better version of what you want to be or you can be. That's what I would say.
Yeah, cool.
I'm
Michael,
29.
You assumed I was going to go right to you, Michael.
Oh, really? That's not fair.
I was going to do no look and go to Jacob, but
Oh.
that's fine.
29 plus.
I'm 29.
Yeah.
Plus 17. I'm 46 years old.
You
So-
46 this year? Yeah, you are.
Just, yeah, a month or so ago. So myself and Conrad are the older souls in the group.
Oh, don't dob me in, mate.
It's interesting because when I read...
Souls or beings?
What's that? Entities.
Skeletons. Oh.
Hey. Conrad is definitely not a skeleton.
Dead set I'm not.
When I was reading the ones that you put up in the group from that website, I found it interesting. I don't know if it was just the ones I read, but it all seemed very biographical. They went through their life, and I did this. You're gonna do this. You're gonna do that. So I thought it was a bit of a reflection piece, really, on life. And I think what I was a bit afraid of with it was going into regret, I suppose, like not having it as a regret piece, sort of looking back and going, make sure you don't do that, and oh shit, you did this. And I mean, there's obviously going to be a little bit of that when you look back at.
I don't think I read regret in any of them that I read, and I think I've read most.
No, I don't think so.
Well, not really in the
I
ones
don't
I
think-
read, but I was
no.
saying from a personal point of
that's
view.
right,
Yeah. I didn't want it to turn into that piece. I think it could quite easily turn into a regret piece.
I
So
guess
you
you got
gotta-
to keep reminding yourself that you're giving advice to a younger version
Yeah.
of yourself. So
Yeah.
if you're going to plant regret, then it's not going to.
But then you still don't want it to be just a biographical thing. Oh, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. There has to be that advice thing, which we're talking about. I did write a paragraph, a brief one. I will read it to you. You won't get lots of advice or guidance on how to grow and strive, but that's okay. You have a good life surrounded by funny and good-natured people, and be grateful for this. So that was my first little bit of advice there, was be grateful. There will be events in your life that will change your path, your parents divorcing, moving to a new country just as you were finding yourself, but that is just life. Keep being a kind person and maybe focus just a little bit more as you turn into an adult, a little bit more focus. So that's the second bit of advice. Find a mentor. Don't smoke pot in the morning.
In the morning? Is that what you were doing?
Well, in my 20s, there was a period there where...
Like what time in the morning?
I don't know, when I got up, I don't know, 9 o'clock, went for surf.
Wow.
And, I lived in Fremantle.
Yeah, okay.
I was
That's
a
probably
hippie back
standard
then.
over there.
Very
Did you have long? Did you have long hair?
I did.
By
I
anyone
did.
listening in Freo.
So
I
spiritual.
still have long hair, Travis.
On the inside.
Listen to you. Yes, on my chest.
Or on the downside?
Listen to your intuition and try to be a little bit more confident. I can't change who you are from here, but you can look at the actions today and do the best you can. But hey, what do I know? If I keep giving you this advice, I might not exist anymore. So actually, as soon as I gave myself advice, I could have disappeared because I've changed who I am. So I was a bit scared of that, but it didn't happen. I'm still here. So yeah, there's little bits of
Shit, Mike. You really took that on a different path.
Well, it's a scary
Or
thing.
just-
If you could go back in time and change something, you never know what could
Wow.
happen.
But
So-
why would you want to change something?
Yeah.
Oh, don't. By just giving advice, maybe I
Oh.
might have gone down a different path and
Yeah.
taken the left path instead of the right path. I don't know, man. The blue pill, red pill thing. I don't know. So yeah, there was bits of advice in there. Obviously, being more grateful, finding a mentor, things that I've learned later in life. I mean, you guys are obviously younger, apart from Conrad, and I've sort of been flourishing, I suppose, in my later years in life. Not that I'm that old, but I didn't go through that process in my 20s or in my early 20s and mid 20s. I suppose when I started having kids, 27, I suppose that's when you step back and look at your life a little bit more. So I suppose there was a change there. I stopped smoking pot and doing that sort of stuff.
Got clearer vision.
Got clear, exactly. Yeah.
Funny that.
Cleared up that job.
Clear eyes.
No glaucoma anymore.
Yeah, I was going to say, got the clearance, no more glaucoma.
Clearly, Michael didn't
More money
read
in your
the
bank
brief,
account
though,
as
'cause
well.
the brief said one thing and why, and not a paragraph. But
No,
thank you, Michael.
I didn't write a whole thing, so I just
At the
I
bottom
would
of the
say
paragraph was a link to the full blog.
find a mentor. That's the one.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I like that one.
Yeah, I reckon that's a pretty good piece of advice.
Yeah.
Not that you as a word.
Sorry, you don't need to build me up.
I'm not
You
comparing
don't
myself.
need to
again.
compare. That's right.
Or compete.
Fucking hell.
Are you looking at me? I wasn't sure if you were going to switch up the...
No. I'm not going to do two look away passes, in a row, then it'll become predictable.
You missed on the first one. You didn't get the assist, mate.
That's typical of Conrad on the basketball floor too.
All right. No, I didn't write paragraphs or put links to further commentary. I just wrote that you are capable of more than you could fathom. Stick to your gut, the work, and believe in yourself. And that I wouldn't want to change anything that I've been through. I think that I just...
So where does that advice come from then?
That advice comes from probably I've been through significantly, like maybe not even the upside, the downside, a lot harder things that I could have ever imagined. But just to...
What would the worst moment be? Can you when you have that reflection that gave you that piece of advice? Can you take us to what memory you had that you were speaking about? Because how old are you now?
37.
37. Did you say that?
37. No, I didn't say that. So I'm 37. That's if you want to go 29. That's plus 8.
So we're taking you back. What would you say? Did you go back to 17, or what was the reflection point?
Yeah, I did probably reflect back to about that age. Or maybe I reflected back to even a little bit later in my mid 20s when I had such a period of illness, which would lasted probably about 24 months, roughly. And I was just mainly it was just reflecting back on the belief, because I think I had belief, but I didn't have full confidence in myself, or that I could move through the challenges that I've been through. So I think I've probably been through more than I could have even imagined at a younger stage. And
Were
I
you
didn't.
frustrated at all?
Was I?
Yeah.
Depends what age.
When you say
In my
belief
mid 20s, yeah.
Yeah, because when you say
Massively.
belief without confidence,
Yeah.
I immediately think about a car spinning its wheels.
Yep. Sure. To the extent that at that period of my life, like I was almost standing still. In a way, I'd got myself to a position where my physical condition was so poor, as well as my mental condition, that I was just trying to survive every day. Yet I had a belief that I was capable and had intended to do so much more. And prior to that, very fit, healthy, active, capable person, capable young man that could do anything. And that was the path and journey that I thought I was on. And I was on that. There's other things I needed to learn. It took me a long time through that period to learn how to improve my health and how to do other things. So I'm really probably talking to myself there, in a sense that I'm telling myself that I was right to believe what I believed, and probably made some decisions along that path to help solidify that belief in myself. But I wouldn't change a thing. Like, I wouldn't want to go back and give myself any advice that changes anything at all. But I just want to give myself a little bit more confidence and surety that I had the right thinking and the right mindset, and didn't matter what others were saying. And just keep doing what you had planned to do.
Jacob?
My advice to my younger self is do you.
You probably did that, mate.
Do you lift,
About
bro?
17, or
Yeah, lift weights, get strong.
How old are you, Jacob?
I'm 29, 28, sorry.
Oh.
Apologies. I kind of, like Michael, kind of reflected this morning and took a moment to begin writing a letter to my younger self.
Like Michael.
I sort of chose 20 for me was a big turning point. I'll kind of get to the context of that a little bit later. And as I am now 18 months away from turning 30, this is sort of the formative decade of my life. And I'm kind of really starting to get a bit more reflective as it starts to kind of come to an end. But I've written, "Dear 20-year-old Jacob, you don't know it yet, but your world is about to change. In the next 12 months, you will suffer great loss and find great love. You will lose one of the greatest people in your life, but gain the person that changes everything for you. Right now, it might feel like everyone has their own plan for you. To go to university, become a professional, settle down, get married, buy a house, have babies, and simply exist. But you know you want more. You can feel deep down that there is something more. Take a tight hold of that feeling and run with it. That feeling will lead to something great. An empire that changes hundreds of lives, all because of your vision and your drive. But don't take that responsibility lightly." And that's what I got to this morning. For me, not long after I turned 20, we found out probably a couple of weeks later that my father was diagnosed with terminal cancer. A few months later, he'd passed away. And so that the early start to my 20s was quite devastating. But a few months later, I met Ainsley, who would go on to become my wife, the mother of my son, and everything changed that year. I quite often reflect on, would I have met Ainsley? Who would I have been had Dad not passed away? Is that purely just fate and that's how it was meant to be? It's a hard thing to go back and go, there's nothing that could be changed? Would I change anything? I still say no. I think that was just the way things were meant to be and meant to progress for me. But I guess the big part of the advice there is just do you. For me, there was a lot of advice, a lot of expectation that I felt to be a certain way, be a certain person. And that was my interpretation of that too. I don't think that's potentially what my parents wanted for me, but now that I've gone down my own path, I dropped out of university, started my own business, and have kind of done a lot of things in untraditional ways. That's kind of got me to where I am today. So my advice to my younger self would just be embrace that.
Yeah, cool.
That's it. Just before you, just a super, the way that you written that, which was awesome, and like that was super cool. And I'm just reflecting on what I wrote as well, and even others. Do you actually find that when you're writing this, you're actually talking to you right now, as well?
Oh, thanks for stealing my thunder, bro.
Sorry. Cut that out.
Jesus, man.
Cut.
This is my episode.
Sorry. I just had the realization. It didn't actually click until you know, went
I was
through.
hoping you had that realization when you guys were doing it.
Nah, I just got it then.
Whoa.
Sorry, man.
No, that's a fair question. I mean, because when I read those pieces of advice, I mean, yeah, they might be talking to a younger version of themselves, but it's very easy to put yourself in that story, particularly if you
Where you are now.
Yeah.
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 It'd also be interesting to be the 90-year-old self writing to who you are right now as well,
Yeah.
sort of reversing it.
I mean, it's an interesting question I posed a few years ago when I managed to be lucky enough to have lunch with Mark Bouris, and you know, it was probably the singular thing I actually wanted to get out of the lunch. It's a very expensive question, but yeah, and I asked him because he was at that stage. You have to believe he was 59 and I was 44, and I said, you know, what advice would you give to a younger version of yourself, Mark? And I've just read the Ray Allen one, I think, around that time. And he got stumped, and he goes, well, you know, I'm not too sure. But then I reframed it for him and I said, okay, well, I'm 44, you're 59. I said, what advice would you give me? You know, if you're in my shoes. And he came back with, funnily enough, one of the things you mentioned, which was be careful what you wish for. Because he'd looked at what I'd done in my life and seen that I'd achieved. And similar to him, you're always achieving into something. Your next level of progression is always into something that you're not or haven't experienced, right? That's just growth. That's like getting a promotion at work. You're always getting promoted because you've done a great job usually, but the gift of the promotion is to go into a job that you have no idea of, and therefore throws you back into the realms of whatever that despair gives you. And as a 17-year-old version of myself, I wanted a lot of different things for myself. You know, I wanted to be a professional sports person, but on my birthday I actually blew my right knee out, and that threw my whole year 12 year out the door. I ran away from home, and I didn't go to school. I failed my TEE or TA or whatever it was at that time, you know, and then it wasn't until I managed to graduate high school by the skin of my teeth. The next day I went in and had my knee operation, and that became my focal point to get myself back onto a basketball court again. Back in those days, that was a good 12 months worth of rehab, and the mental challenge that provided me, and the opportunity and space that gave me to re-peg my life, and to redirect my energy, was really interesting. And so, you know, it's a case of, it was that be careful what you wish for, because you're going to get it. I wanted to be great at something, right? If I was honest, and that at that stage I was excelling at sport, and I thought that was my path forward. But it gave me the opportunity to then apply the same level of activity and action to my studies, and then on towards my career, which is what I took. You know, I took that same ferociousness to that, and you know, I studied hard. I got back into uni. I then decided uni wasn't for me, and I then went to work, and I said to myself another goal that I wanted to be, you know, a manager within the National Australia Bank within 7 years, and I did that. You know, from that point I wanted to achieve other things, and I did that. And you know, so upon reflection, one of the other pieces of advice I'd give myself, and yes, this is too, would be to understand gratitude. And because to me, that's probably the cornerstone of any personal growth, is moving forward, being grateful for who you are and what you are, understanding that the world happens for you, not to you, and those opportunities need to be embraced, and you need to be accepting of all of those things. Because if I didn't, you know, again, if I didn't grapple with losing, or if I didn't grapple with the injury back when I was 17, I don't know where that would have got me, and I'm not regretful, but you know, when you value time, it'd be interesting to see what that time back could give you to do. And to me, that's probably the only real reflection I get is being careful what you wish for. Funnily enough, I was lucky enough to meet a bloke yesterday who's known as the godfather of boards in WA, in Mike Horriban, and you know, we sat down, we had a chat, and the first thing he said to me, Conrad, so you want to be on more big, you want to be on bigger boards? He goes, be careful what you wish for. And I sat there and had a laugh with him and talked to him about the story about that. And so it's kind of a consensus that, you know, you'll get what you want, yeah, but are you going to be ready for what it is that you want? Do you want to be great at basketball? Are you prepared to do the work? Do you want a business and you want to make $1 million a year? Are you prepared for the trials and tribulations? You want to be a great dad? Are you prepared to open yourself up and learn about vulnerability and unconditional love? Because those are all the things that you do open yourself to when you want and wish for certain things, not just the aesthetic version, which is what that is. A 17-year-old guy, I grew up in a household, we were immigrants to this country, we had nothing, and I wanted to have money, and I wanted to get there the fastest way I could. And in getting money, I lost a lot of money. I lost $100,000 on a stock trade. I lost $1 million in a business. I lost a lot of money because I aimed at money first. And that was another challenge. So, reflecting to me is really interesting. I will get to the point where I write one of these letters, and at this stage, it's probably not something I'll publish, but maybe something that I'll get read at my funeral. But I encourage, because again, it's a very immersive moment to go through and a very cathartic process from reading. So I can imagine what it felt like to write it, Jacob and Michael. You went through and wrote yours, and I'm not sure, did you write anything or just wrote notes?
I just wrote that sentence down. I didn't write anything in any detail.
So I've given you the process there, and I think we'll try and include the link to it because there is some of these there's a specific way to write them to try and get out the raw emotion. And I think that's where it's at, right? Again, when you read the stuff, I went and paid good money to go listen to Kobe, and I have read this letter, but watching him deliver it took a whole nother depth, because you saw the emotion on his face when he discussed the regret with relation to how he managed his family, and that was real to him, and you could feel that and see that. And so when you get to speak it, and you might get a chance to speak to Henry at some stage, don't miss that opportunity.
Yeah, I think as a father, it's a really good exercise to then reflect on how you can speak to
and the
your,
truth is,
your kids.
Your children may never listen to you.
Oh,
right?
They don't, not at
right?
16,
They may never
17,
listen to you, but
yeah.
it shouldn't take away from the opportunity you have.
But it could be a little seed, yeah?
Yeah,
It's that
100%.
little-
I think they're all seeds, and I'm forever grateful for these guys having taken the time to do that, because they've meant a lot to me, and it's provided me a lot of teaching moments through story. Again, that I've had with my guys in the office, some basketballers I mentor, and some business people I mentor. So yeah, because everyone's trying to achieve some level of, I would say, substantial presence on this planet. Call it greatness, call it whatever you want. But I believe everybody wants to belong and participate. And I guess the question becomes, how much are you prepared to give of yourself to be able to do that?
I think it's even more important now that a couple of episodes ago or an episode ago we talked about the frameworks are breaking down and we don't have these set values anymore. So I think it's even more important to have these conversations.
Yeah. Anybody got 2 bobs to throw in there, given that everyone's gone around the table?
I thought
No?
Jacob's writing was amazing. I thought it was very touching and really heartfelt. Like you could tell that it came.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to expanding on that. That was just 15 minutes of, I guess, journaling this morning. So I hadn't done it before, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity to fleshing it out a little bit more.
Did you follow the profile that I gave you, or did you just go through your own?
A little bit. I've read a couple to kind of get a bit of a feel for the goal or the vibe, and then had a look at the questions and use that a little bit to guide it.
It's a good reflection piece on your last 15 years or 20 years or 25 years to then put you in a good
30 years.
30 years. I was being polite. To put yourself in a good stead for moving forward as well, because it really makes you reflect on everything that you've done in the last 30 years. To allow yourself to really springboard your next 30 years.
Yeah.
So I think it's a great exercise if anyone wants to do something like that.
Cool.
I just want to acknowledge everyone as well. And Jacob, you really wrote a paragraph there, but it's quite, you have to be quite vulnerable to sort of even write something like this for yourself, and I think a lot of people couldn't even face what they would write themselves, let alone be able to share it amongst a group of people like this, or knowing that we're putting this public. So I just think it's
Is this episode going out live? Can you cut the
it's
bit
not,
that
it's
I
not,
talked
it's
about?
not quite live. But look, I just want to I guess reward or suggest that it's pretty amazing that we can do this, and I'm really happy that we're obviously getting better and better as we go along with this process of sharing on this podcast, and maybe you write it to yourself, whoever's listening, and maybe you can share it with us or with someone, and it's obviously a process. It's something that I think we're not starting to take for granted, but starting to do more and more of, and just be vulnerable and as authentic as possible.
You just stole my other bit of thunder, where I was going to ask people for comments and share their one thing. But
we can
between you and Justin, I think
we can cut that out as well,
this
if you
episode
like,
and call it the Matt Hannum, Conrad Francis, and Justin Bourne.
Well,
episode.
Conrad, I would like to, if you would like to wrap the episode up.
Thanks for your contribution, gentlemen. I appreciate the openness and vulnerability you guys always showed. I encourage our readers to go through the same process if it's open for them. If you feel like sharing it with any one of us, go for it. We're all reachable on social or in the group. And on that, we're already Spotify.
Nice drop too.
Yeah, I don't mind it.
It's good.
I don't feel like it's castrated me yet. But we're on Spotify. What's the other ones?
iTunes.
Everywhere.
iTunes. Are we
Stitcher.
everywhere?
Pretty much everywhere.
Podcast app.
Stitcher. Yeah, it's pretty cool. I can tell people to get us on most things. So, yeah. On that note, see you later.
See ya.
Bye. Champagne.
Ciao.